Chainsaw Man's ending was a mixed bag of emotions for me. It was somewhat unsatisfying, but also something I think I'm okay with. This ending, I'm gonna say very bluntly, does feel like it was rushed. But there was a lot of things that I still love about it, and also a lot of things I still love about part 2. In this video, I'm going to go over briefly how exactly I feel about part 2 as a whole compared to part 1, then what I think about the ending itself. Also, I would like to use other manga as an example to frame how I think about this. I'll try not to go into too much detail about those other manga, but know that I will be talking about Tokyo Revengers, Jujutsukaisen, and Jujutsukaisen Modulo as well. Preface before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I don't think what I'm going to say is going to completely line up with what you think, whether it's positive or negative, but at the end of the day, I want to say that my opinion is my own, and what I'm going to say is not trying to invalidate what you think. I've never tried to do that, and I do feel like a lot of people have and will. Even if something is seemingly unanimously agreed to be bad or otherwise, that doesn't mean that people who enjoy or hate the ending or whatever we're discussing are wrong, and you're not wrong for your opinion. At the end of the day, very little is objective when it comes to your enjoyment and opinions regarding a story. So with that being said, Chainsaw Man's ending is not what I expected from Fujimoto, and I think that might be okay. How I feel about part 2. My problem with part 2's ending lies with how it was executed. That also goes for the entire story of part 2 as well. From my Naruto video, you could probably gather that I am a part 2 enjoyer. But again, like I said earlier, I'm not a part 2 is not as flawed as you think type of guy, or a part 2 is worse than you think type of guy. I feel like I'm rather in the middle. That's not to say that other people aren't. I just feel like on certain places, like Reddit, you see that there is a humongous amount of negativity surrounding it. Though, I'm not going to invalidate how upset you are. You're valid to think that way. However, I still like part 2. I still think part 2 is a solid like 8 out of 10, maybe 7.5 out of 10. Part 1, however, was a 10 out of 10. It is one of the best stories I've ever read, and I've read a lot of stories, not just manga. I connected with Chainsaw Man Part 1 in a way that not many stories allow me to connect with. Part 2, I feel like, and I want to use the analogy of an appetizer at a restaurant, is like this. Part 2 is a bunch of really good appetizers, some onion rings here, some bread there, and the bread might be really good sometimes, but I'm waiting for my burger. Part 1 is the beautiful burger that I had. I keep coming to this restaurant because I want that burger again. Part 2 is a whole bunch of great appetizers that remind me of how much I love that burger. The burger that I ended up getting, which I was hoping was going to be amazing, was lukewarm. The chefs and waiters rushed it to me. Now, for some reason, I had some condiments on there that I didn't want, and some stuff that I wanted was missing. Still okay, but not as good as it could be. Now, if the order had just so happened to be wrong, but it's hot and a fresh burger, at least it's really good. Then I can eat the burger and be like, man, you know what? I might not like it as much as I thought I was going to, but even though it's not the same burger I wanted all this time, at the end of the day, it's still a good burger, and my trusted restaurant has still got it. All of that to say, I feel like part 2 with the ending did not wrap up everything that I wanted it to wrap up. Despite that, it still had some amazing moments, and Asa is still one of my favorite characters of all time. I really like it, and I did have high hopes for it. People criticized the art, pacing, some of the characters, but I still loved it, and still do love it anyways. But even though I'm not in love with it like I was with part 1, I think it's still good. I held out hope that despite its flaws, Fujimoto would stick the landing, and for good reason too. I love the moment in the Aging Devils arc where Denji is resolved in being a perpetual motion machine, resolved and moving forward no matter what. I loved seeing Pochita erase concepts. I loved every moment with Asaden, especially at the aquarium, and how Asa tried to comfort Denji after saving him. I love the Nayuta flashback in any moment with her, especially her love for Denji. I love the comedy, the last moment between Yoshida and Denji. Yoru's dynamic with Asa was always compelling to me. I loved a lot of the beginning of part 2 as well. Honestly, I love really anything with Asa in it. For the little we got of them, I love the Horsemen, and I think Barum, Naida, Yoshida, Fumiko, and Yoru are great characters who add many great moments that made me feel deeply. I won't go into any more of that, however, because the video would be too long. Just know I found part 2 to be a great ride. But unlike part 1, where we have characters like Himino and Rize who had a short time on screen, but we were immediately endeared to, some of part 2's characters lacked the ability to meaningfully push the plot forward and let the surviving cast really sit with the lessons they learned from them. I feel like part 2's flaws lie in the fact that it's a never-ending roller coaster. It's hype and it's fun, but it doesn't have a lot of downtime between the next big event to really sit with what just happened, except for a few moments, like where Denji breaks down before the alleyway scene, or Denji and Asa relating to both being dad killers. But that just reinforces my point that these moments are generally the highlight of the manga for me. The impact of the big events making these calmer moments hit a lot harder. Part 1 has a lot of these. Aki's tears for Himuro, Denji's movie date with Makima, Makima telling Denji has a heart, Denji sitting and waiting for Rize, feeling terrible that the one person he sort of believed liked him for who he was wasn't coming, the many times we get into Denji's head about a girl, or how unsatisfied he is with his dreams and where he is in life, the door scenes with Pochita and Denji looking after power after the events of the Darkness Devil, the bonding between the trio, and then Makima taking it all the way at the end, Denji eating Mahakima, etc., etc. All moments among many that endear you to the characters and instill the tragedy and ideas that Fujimoto has presented. As I mentioned before, it's not that part 2 is without these things, it's just lacking. And to me, now looking back on it after the story is concluded, it shows the story structure can feel like it's stalling and not as sure of itself as it was before, making some moments feel anticlimactic. Its ending and other manga. But the ending felt like Fujimoto picked a place to stop that was somewhat satisfying and ended it there. I disagree with the idea that a lot of people have where they want the ending to be Denji dying or offing himself. I think that would have been terrible. If I had to choose between what we got and that hypothetical, I prefer to be the former, the ending where it's bittersweet with some moments of happiness, and Denji still has the chance to still be happy because he lives in a slightly less messed up world where he has another chance to connect with Asa, Power, and Nayada, just without the blessing and eventual curse that being Chainsaw Man was. With that being said, I feel like Fujimoto did not set it up well enough to feel satisfying. I hold the stance that the ending in a vacuum is not bad, but it wasn't set up well enough to be satisfying given the context of the entire story. I feel like if the goal of part 2 was to get to this ending and there was a lot more foreshadowing with it, I would have been completely satisfied with how it ended. My gripe is not that the ending itself is bad per se. In fact, I would say it's a good ending. I think it's the way that we got to the ending that was bad. For example, in my opinion, Jujutsu Kaisen's ending is not bad. It's rushed, but the difference between how JJK was rushed and how Chainsaw Man ending was rushed is that JJK had a bunch of stuff we wanted to see fleshed out, like more flashbacks to the hand era and Suguna's upbringing that we didn't get, but the core characters in the story still got to conclude. It wrapped up stuff pretty decently. Now, I may not like how some stories were concluded, like Gojo's, or the amount of time we had to give these characters conclusions, but the story didn't feel like it was missing 10 chapters leading up to the conclusion for me. It was a great story with a decent ending. Chainsaw Man is an amazing manga with an ending that is pretty so-so. An ending is supposed to be the culmination of well thought out themes and ideas, which part 1 had done, I would say perfectly. Part 2's ending didn't do that. It didn't feel like the culmination of anything. It felt like a missed opportunity. I still don't know much about the real Famine Devil or Lil D as people and not plot devices. I don't know what eventual decision Denji would have had to make that the Fire Devil warned him about. I don't know how Asa and Yoru's character arcs would have ended. We never got to see the eventual end to Denji's character arc or even see the new Blood Devil. We just didn't get to see any of this. I feel like there are a lot of open-ended plot points that we'll never know about, which just makes me feel sort of unsatisfied with what we eventually got. Same thing with JJK Modulo. It had a similar problem where I feel like I missed 10 chapters. I feel like a lot of the story was missing, and I think that's the same thing with Chainsaw Man Part 2. I loved so much of it, but the ending didn't make me feel like all of the ideas that were built up were leading to something, unlike with Part 1, where everything felt like it was leading to something. Every arc of part 1 had a purpose towards making you feel something at the end, to leave you thinking. I feel like my hope for part 2's ending was that even if it was abrupt, it would at least conclude the characters like I know Fujimoto can do. I'm fine with Pochita's final goodbye. I'm fine with Pochita concluding Chainsaw Man has been like a drug to Denji that's ruined his life just as it's saved it. I'm fine with Nayuta coming back. I'm fine with Denji having power back. I'm fine with the whole will they, won't they with Asa and Denji at the end, and the question of what devil is Pochita exactly. What I'm not fine with is the fact that this just so happened to come out of nowhere. I feel like we are missing many chapters worth of exposition or storytelling. I would prefer sacrificing many chapters worth of Denji's fight with Yoru, as entertaining as it was, for more chapters building this up. I think the ending is average. I think it's fine. In fact, I'm sort of okay with it. I just wanted more, and I think that's the problem. I think Chainsaw Man Part 2 is a pretty decent continuation of the main story that could have been given a lot more room to breathe, or time to breathe, if Fujimoto was passionate enough about it, or for whatever reason was holding him back. I feel like Part 2, despite having hiccups, is still great, and I still like it. I still enjoy it. At the end of the day, this is what we have. I prefer a rushed, bittersweet ending with hope rather than Denji dying or being miserable or any other abrupt ending. I think this is fine because at least it gives the characters hope and it opens the door for them to lead good enough lives and still connect in some way. I just wish I were able to see it. It's still going to be a top 2 manga for me though. I still enjoyed what we had in both parts. Those moments still mean something, and I would still recommend someone read Chainsaw Man Part 2 and come to their own conclusion. All of this to say, for everyone who doesn't like it, I understand and I see your point. Everyone who loves it, I understand and I see your point. But for me, it's disappointing yet still enjoyable. For those who made it to the end, thank you so much. Now, to the great people who've watched multiple videos of mine, sorry for the lack of uploads recently. I've just been going through a lot of college stuff and just general burnout when it comes to editing. But in lieu of that, I've been thinking about part 2 a lot recently, obviously. I've taken a step back to be able to approach how I feel about this manga as a whole and just discussions surrounding all things really, just trying to get more perspective on things and just becoming a better person. In the gap between my last few videos and this one, I've been successfully powering through a lot of my last year before I get my associate's degree. I read all the JJK and all of Modulo for the first time. I beat in Resident Evil 1 through 4 for the first time. Been doing a lot of personal growth and mental health and working out and drawing, just enjoying life, you know? But I still have a passion for creating these videos, so look out for the next one. And for those who stuck around, I also wanted to talk about this really interesting comment that I saw recently that I very much agree with. So, Jason124 on Reddit says, "From the way I see it, part 2 is about Denji fighting with addiction. The whole time he's fighting with himself and his addiction to being Chainsaw Man. He wants to live a normal life, but that itch keeps coming back to him and eventually leads to worse and worse things happening. Pochito was watching this the entire time and kept giving Denji second chances, until the end where he realized that maybe the only way for him to be happy is if he quit cold turkey. Part 2 was the build up of Denji's life spiraling out of control and how that weighed on Pochita. He kept getting glimpses of happiness, only for them to be taken away. He saw it was a cycle and decided to end it. I think this was the way it was intended to play out, but because of how rushed Part 2 was, we never got to see how Pochita felt until the very end, so it all ends up feeling like an ass pull rather than a natural conclusion. And I very much agree with that. The reason why I feel like I'm okay with this ending is simply because of that, and I feel like that very much put into perspective how I feel about it as a whole and how I think Fujimoto was trying. I think that was his intention. And so I just wanted to bring that up as a just a little negative thought for people. I think that's a really good comment. And that's basically kind of how I feel about it as well.